Born in Lower Hutt,
Yep.
and raised in Wellington and that was in Marae. I left school, not very well educated. However, I went to Hutt Valley Memorial Technical College, which is Batoni Tech. Went to Austin's and made 1100s and minis and stuff like that in the early 60s. But anyway, I got married and I wanted to get a house like everybody else, and there was no opportunity of getting a house. However, my wife and I went down to Christchurch and I got a job as a postie in Christchurch, and I did the Cathedral Square for many years, and I worked my way up to be one of the managers of the department. That was on shift work, and I'd start at 5 o'clock at night, finish at 1, get up at 7 and do my wood turning in my shed at home. My first wife, she would do all the finishing, the polishing and stuff like that of the bowls, and we'd sell it down to the art centre there on Saturday afternoons. And the art centre in the late 70s and 80s and through to the 90s, it was in the heyday.
So when did you start turning wood?
Turning wood?
Yeah.
When I was about 15 or less, so that's about 60 plus years ago.
And where did you learn it from?
I just learned it from myself. There was it was a woodworkers guild that was very, very strong in Christchurch. We went to a polytech, a weekend thing, and I had a suitcase full of files and that for chisels, sharpen the end of them. And one chap came up to me, a big tall guy, Mark Pearcey, he's one of New Zealand's best turners, and he came up and said, "Jim, would you like to put that suitcase in the corner and I'll lend you one of my chisels?" I said, "Yep, that'll be fine." Well, that revolutionised my wood turning, and from that day on, these are the kind of chisels that I use. Just that there, and I've had this for over 20 odd years. This is a 1/4 inch one.
What's the brand you're using?
These are handmade, and these are made by the same people that made the lathes.
Okay.
And they had a special. It was all number 8 wire stuff and that, and it certainly worked.
So was there any other wood turners in your family? Where did you get
No,
wood?
but my grandmother's sister, they lived across the road in Palmerston North. Her husband, he made Uncle Jack, and he made rifle butts by hand. And I remember sitting there as a 7-8-year-old kid in the back of their house, in the wash house, and he'd have all these rifle butts, and most of them were of walnut. He would carve these butts and that. So by sitting through there and seeing it at school and stuff like that, I sort of thought, well, I just gravitated to this. And over the years, I suppose, before I bought these ones, I'd gone through about 7 or 8 loads. And not because I wore them out, it's because I was frustrated with them, every one of them. Until I joined the Woodworkers Guild in Christchurch, and then I got to meet other guys that were making lathes and stuff, and this is how I got these ones here.
So the machine behind you is your tool of...
Yeah, this is my lathe here, and it's a bowl turning lathe. It runs very smoothly. This was made for me about 30 odd years ago, and it was made in Rocking Horse Road in Christchurch.
Yep.
I call it a Stradivarius. You don't get many of them, and I've been working with this. It's just a beautiful lathe, very smooth and that. Over the years, at times, it's a bit like my Achilles heel and my salvation. I had a phone call from Mark Zuckerman, and he was part of the craft gallery, and he said, "Would you like to come over and be part of the craft gallery? You have to move all your stuff and start a new life there." And so we come over, had a look, and said, "Yes, we'll do that." And we bought a house out at 3 Mile, we did that.
So you were specialising in wood turn products. Mark was doing other wood products.
Yeah. He does a lot of kitchen stuff, kitchen utensils, and he was my mentor for many years. And I'm still standing in the gallery now, working for Jürgen, and it's 25 years that I've been still standing there. When I came over here and had a divorce, I've been professionally turning on and off, and the one that really sunk me, and I did to a lot of people, and that was 9/11, when the two planes hit the buildings. Because the Americans in that, before that happened, were middle-aged, very wealthy, wanting to see the world, and our dollar was $2 of theirs. And so they bought up a lot of stuff, and I did very well out of that. And then I ended up buying this house here and started turning from here.
So were you turning full time? Was that your main source of income?
On and off I was. Then 9/11 struck, and so I went and got a job at New World, and I worked with Ross Overton in the produce, and I must have been there for about 7, 8, 9 years, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then I got a phone call from Bernie Rudunsky from Westland Greenstone. Jim, would you like a job? You're good with your hands and that. I'd never met this man or anything. We got around, so I went down with my CV and that. And from there on, I was there for about 9 years. And I thought, oh, yes, this is okay. And I got to be very good at polishing. Yeah, well, the first one was an interesting one. That was the very first one, and it's sitting in the RSA in Hokitika, and that was Ken Ward. He was the very last of the Second World War veterans. I think he was 97, and he was a lovely guy, and I worked alongside his daughter, Christine. I went and seen him and talked to him and that, and he held great mana in the RSA. And I thought, well, maybe I'll make this poppy bowl and present it to him. So I went and seen his daughter, and by this time Ken was pretty crook. I said to Christine, I've made a poppy bowl and I'd like to place his name on it. Well, while she was working there, she just burst into tears and said, that's a great honour. Thank you very much. And that was presented in conjunction with the same time at the opening of the RSA.
Rā tātou kia rātou. Hei whakatapu I rongo tengo te matua, te tama me te Waiouru tapu.
And that's number 1. Then it progressed on to number 2 and number 3 and stuff like that. And the concept is that the poppy bowl is for the placing and the placement of the poppy on ANZAC Day. And these are being held in very high regard within church, cathedrals, Marae, and also RSAs throughout New Zealand and that. As you can see, some of them are shallow, some of them are deep, some of them are large, some of them are small. This is Heart Rimu underneath here, and this one here is Totra. Totra. And it had a big rotten piece in there, and that excites me to see something rotten in there, because it's a bit of a challenge in making something from it. So I took it all out and I burnt it, and then I highly polished it. Now all the bowls there have got about 10 coats of French polish, and the underneath has got a penny on it. Now the penny is that's the coin of their realm. That's the money that they used to use. And the penny itself, it's quite large, and I always have the tui underneath it, or if it's an earlier penny, it'll have something else on it. But all the pennies in that were gifted to me. Some people just turn up with a bag of pennies.
Is there any magic to the design?
Well, I wanted to do the turning and keep it simple, and I didn't want to do a lot of sanding in that. This here, all this gnarling, I call it chattering. I do all this and on here, and I just wanted to do the simple lines of polish and just bring out the wood on the outside, and you can see that they're all the same there. I had a very strong calling into my soul, make poppy bowls, make poppy bowls. Until this voice spoke to me very strong, not only once, many, many times, do this, do it. So what is it? What am I supposed to do in that? And while I'm working in the workshop here, it came. There was no drawings, there was no nothing, and many times I'm working here on my own with the radio going quietly and that, I'd sense a presence in here. And I really believe this presence is the guiding force of what I was doing. There's no paperwork, there's no nothing. And at times when I'm working on the lathe or I'm finishing poppy bowls or gluing up or whatever, I feel as though it's not my hands doing this. There's somebody else doing my hands. Even with Bruce Smith, our mayor, he heard about it, he came on board. Another God moment, you know. If it was another mayor or another person in that, it wouldn't have happened. He gave me that exposure, even rang up TV3 and I ended up on national TV. And all of a sudden, there were people wanting to come on board. There were flitches of Rimu and there was other things that would appear at my door here when I turn up from going out and that. I wouldn't know who did this. And the greenstone, even today, people coming up and say, would you like some more greenstone? These are the people that have worked with greenstone. I've not paid for greenstone. And greenstone's like buying gold, you know. And this is what it's eventuated. And it's been a joy, a great journey. And I really believe this presence is the guiding force of what I was doing. Every bowl that's gone out is recorded. And I think the second one or third one was presented to Bill Henderson. He is the Padre now and of the Hokitika RSA, and he's also now the patron. And the third poppy bowl that's inside the RSA at Hokitika is Pat Stewart's, and he's just passed away some months ago. These poppy bowls have got so much power with them and sacred and mana with them. I was just talking to Bill Henderson just the other day, having a drink with him, and he told me that he was very, very sick. The RSA rang up and said, one or two of us are coming around for a cup of tea and that, just to see you. Well, there must have been about 7 or 8 of us turned up, and we all had number ones, our ties and everything on. And I said to Bill just the other day, what did you think when we walked in with our ties? He said, I thought I was attending my own bloody funeral. And but however, he came out, the family brought him out. The moment this was presented and that, I did the presentation. I've done several presentations now to on the poppy bowls and that. And I remember each time there are tears falling down their eyes and that. One of the things that was burning a hole in my guts is how am I going to get these things around New Zealand and stuff like that? And I thought, well, I can't do it on my own bat. I'm only on a pension here. And word got out once again, and I found out that New Zealand couriers, they come and see me, and they come and see the product and how I was going to do it and all that kind of stuff. And they said, we'll come on board and we'll deliver these. So the Post and New Zealand couriers have done all the delivery of all these poppy bowls, and they've paid for it. I'm talking of, say, $10,000 of postage and delivery thereof. Now, when New Zealand Couriers, the manager came and had a look at this, he said, we'll deliver these on one stipulation. Well, what's that? You are to ring every RSA, and this went with also the Marae, and any other churches and that. We'll make these deliveries. You have to ring and make sure somebody's going to be there to receive it. I thought, oh gosh, no. And funnily enough, it turned out it was a joy to do. And so that's how it went. If I was living in Wellington or Auckland or a bigger place, Hamilton or wherever, this would never ever happen.
So you mentioned that Signlink Graphics have helped you out quite a bit as well. Can you just tell us what they've been doing for you?
Yeah, Signlink Graphics. Somebody mentioned, hey, what about a letter of authenticity? Most of the people, churches and that, are getting this and signing Signlink and that did a fantastic job of the graphics itself on here. The number of the total collection is 250. This number is 230. It's made out of New Zealand beech, and it's Our Lady of the Lord's Catholic Church, Waiouru Haast, and that was dated and my signature to it. And all of them are doing exactly the same thing. The RSAs and churches and that, they've actually framed them and placed them alongside the poppy bowl, and it explains what the poppy bowl is all about. One of my hardest tasks was when the Marae, and I thought, yeah, well, we'll give some to Marae. It needs to be done. And I thought, how are we going to do that? And once again, this is happening to me. And Richard Wallace, the Bishop of the South Island, he and Matty turned up many times and helped me with the journey of the ANZAC Poppy Bowl going to Marae, and also Maureen Pugh, and she sent me out a manifest of all the RSAs in New Zealand, and also there's 700 Marae throughout New Zealand, and I thought, well, we've got to narrow this down. So I talked to Bishop Richard, and so what's happened, there's 30 plus very large poppy bowls that I'd made, and they're all about the same, and most of them are made out of Hokitika, and that was donated and left outside my shed. And we narrowed the field down to about 30, and the reason for that is they're all affiliated, these Marae, affiliated to the 28th Marae Battalion of the Second World War. So that brought it down to that there at Waiouru, the military museum. There's a wall of tears there, and it's a wall of water running down, and at the back of this wall is a stone. It's a green stone, and that was gifted by the Bruce Bay many years ago, and it's big slabs, and that's very very powerful. And I said to the bishop, is it possible to get the same stone as the wall of tears to go on to the Marae poppy bowls? Yes, I think that should be all right. But eventually it did happen, and it came from the same boulder as the wall of tears. So that carries so much mana, especially for the Marae throughout. And very dark, but it was a difficult stone to polish. And I did all the polishing, and that was the other thing with Westland greenstone. I'd left by that and retired. But they got wind of what I was doing and the polishing the greenstone. The owners rang me up and said, listen, you know how to run the factory, you know your stuff, you're very good at it. Come with your greenstone and polish every one of those to be mounted on all your greenstone poppy bowls. So everything was, all I had to do is work with it, and there was no money changing hands. A real God moments, I call them. One's gone to Auckland Memorial Museum. 3 have gone into Waiouru Museum. This particular one here, it's already been engraved, and that's going down to the Haast Catholic Church. Okay. And Father Mahoney's supposed to be picking that up sometime. Yep. This one here is going to be presented to a guy that was born and raised here, and now he's very high up in the church, and his name is Steve Lowe, and he is the top Catholic bishop throughout New Zealand, and he's now in Auckland. I got a phone call from Australia, and I can't remember the joker's name now, but he's responsible of the warriors, the animal warriors of the wars. The animals of the dogs, the horses, they've got the equivalent of the Victoria Cross, and there's a memorial there in the museum up in Waiouru. And so he rang me to say, could you please place a poppy bowl in there? And it's not the Victoria Cross as such, it's called the Blue Cross. And I quiz people when they come in and I tell them about the story. I said, what was the last animal that got the Blue Cross? And that was a rat. The rat got a Victoria Cross, and he was the one that's sniffing out the bombs and stuff on a piece of string, and he'd go running out and that. So when they retired him, he got the equivalent of the Victoria Cross. Isn't that a great story? There was another joker, and he come from Putamahome, I think it was. He was a fellow wood turner, and he saw him with bowls and that in the gallery. And I had this big poppy bowl on the lay, the big thing. And he said, well, what are you making? A big platter and that? I said, no, I'm making a bowl for the ANZAC Poppy bowls. And what are the ANZAC Poppy bowls? And by that time I had almost 200 poppy bowls sitting in my house. So he said, can I buy one of these poppy bowls? No, you can't. These are not for sale. They're all to be given away. They've already been paid for by the people that died in the wars. And he said, well, I belong to a society called the Passchendaele Society. And I said, oh yes, what's that? And he told me his story. And he said, we don't have buildings and that, but there are many thousands of people who belong to the Passchendaele Society. And he said, there's a big museum at Passchendaele. Can we have a poppy bowl for there? Certainly. So a lot of it's on trust in that. As far as I know, they're sitting where they should be, or it could be sitting in somebody's lounge. I don't know. I can only go on trust.
So you keep an inventory, don't you, of everything that goes out?
Yep, so, everything that goes out.
So what's the number? How many have you turned so far?
Well, documented 250 of them.
Yeah.
And just the other day I finished off another 6 or 8 of these, and they're sitting in the lounge and that. And I'm not too sure where they're going to go at the moment, but things happen. And I'll be gifting one of these poppy bowls through the museum to the people of Hokitika, Westland.
Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
Thank you.
So, as for those of you who don't know me, my name's Rangi Campbell, and I'm the president of the Hokitika Westland RSA. So, Mr. John Underwood, you are the president here in Marae. Mr. President, please accept this on behalf of Hokitika Westland RSA.
Thanks for that. It's a great honour to have it, and a great honour to actually accept it on behalf of Hokitika, or behind of Kamara RSA, but from Hokitika RSA. It's absolutely bloody beautiful. And I'd like to thank you for the work you've done with it.
That's okay.
It's
my pleasure.
It's really something to be really proud of, and it'll be here for many bloody centuries later,
Yes.
Exactly.
This is your poppy bowl.
Beautiful.
And the poppy bowl is made out of Marae, and the base is made out of New Zealand beech. The stem itself is stainless steel, and your engraving at the back here is ANZAC Poppy Bowl, Kumara RSA, lest we forget. This here is a letter of protocol, the RSA letter of protocol. Alright, and the RSA should adhere to that. And at the bottom here it has a poem, and that's from Chris Auckland's wife. You know who Chris Auckland is?
Yep.
Yep, that's his wife. And we go to the same church together. Well, unfortunately, Elspeth passed away about 6 months ago now. She's a beautiful lady. And as we're coming out of the church, she passed it over heads and said, Jimmy, with these poppy bowls, I just drafted this thing out. And it was only a little piece of paper like this. And she said, I just did this poem just last night. I thought you might be interested. I read it, and I thought this would be ideal to go on here. If I may, can I read it?
Please do.
All right. Great Uncles of Passchendaele by Elspeth Auckland. Yours is not to hear the tui sing, as across the fields we swing, nor feel the sunshine's golden ray. and pause to watch the goldfin peck upon the thistle's silky neck. River, seaside, Mariam grass, who would know that this all would pass? You took your horse, your faithful steed, to march to a comfort and country's need, to where the poppies grew apace. You left us our country and your space. Fabulous. Can you just picture that in the First World War and Passchendaele and all that? Presidents Rangi and John, thank you very much for accepting one of my poppy bowls. I'm very, very humbled that it should come into the rooms of the RSA here in Kumara. I'm really pleased about that.
I think we're very grateful to be able to get the opportunity of having it here.
Yep.
Well, we'd be very proud of them.
If you can't find a place, use it as the doorstop, or even a spittoon. I do apologise for eating into your drinking time. It just hurts me. Let's have some tea, eh?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Well done.
So, Jimmy, you've decided to stop carving.
It won't be tomorrow or the next day. I've still got a lot of turning to do and a lot of poppy bowls, but I'm thinking of one more season, and that, in other words, just another year, and I'll see where it goes from there. I should get in my car and go out and see a bit of New Zealand, maybe follow up some of these poppy bowls and that, but I want to go around and have a look at some of these, and now is not the time, but I know time is coming.
Okay.
But bit by bit, I'll just close this thing down, and hopefully somebody will come and say, yes, I'll take this on, providing you teach me how to do it, Jim, and that'll be okay. Yeah, so.
Hey, well, thank you for your time today. It's been really interesting, and it's a great story, so thanks for sharing. Thanks,
That's
Jimmy.
Okay. Particular bowl here, I would like to see this one go down to Scott Base.
Right.
And I still haven't found a certain person that can take this under their arm, because there's no postal delivery down there, and take the paperwork and gift it to Scott Base.